I'd like to welcome everybody here. First thing I'd like to say is I know this TUC has got a lot to do with anniversaries, 150 years of the TUC, but actually this room has got very good memories for the National Shop Stewards Network, because in 2010 we held our first rally outside the conference centre, and then we marched along here for a rally in the Mechanics Institute, and it was absolutely packed to the rafters. People were sitting all over the place. It was a fantastic rally. Today we have a great lineup of trade union leaders, I have to say the best of the trade union leaders, involved in serious struggles in their own sectors, and we believe that all these major leaders have a real role to play this week at the TUC. I can see conference delegates, I can see local activists, and in particular we'd like to welcome those groups of workers who are involved or have been recently involved in real battles all over the country. And I think we extend a special welcome to those workers. Last year we had Whips Cross porters, and most importantly the Birmingham bin workers who really brought the rally alive. This year we've got representatives of the train drivers in a tenacious battle to keep the guards on the trains, and of course their own jobs, from the housing construction workers in the Mears dispute, who took 80 days of strike action and won. We've got care workers from Birmingham once again, flying the flag for Birmingham, who are battling against cuts to hours, and I believe some others, the probation officers, who are struggling with the fallout from the crisis in the prison service. And these are not the only class struggles. And we want to big up the National Shop Stewards Network, want to big up the idea that if you put up a fight, you can win something. No matter how bleak it looks when you start out, once you get on that road, once people have got a focus, they rise to the occasion. Everybody feels a head higher. And in the end, you win something. It might not be everything, but you win something. And the bosses have to treat you with just a little bit more respect than they do nowadays. The workers in all these battles are doing what trade unionists have done for 150 years. And we'll probably hear much of that glorious past in the coming week. And of course, we pay tribute to what trade unionists have done in the past. We pay tribute to our forebears in the early 19th century, forming new trade unions, especially for the young and for the unskilled. We salute those who established the NHS and built masses of council houses in the post-war 1945 period. And we also salute those who worked in the 1960s and 70s, who really built on those achievements and got things like Sunday pay and overtime pay, something which is in the past these days. They got improved pensions, and they even had a certain power inside of the big factories. And I remember the fight that was beginning to get off the ground for a 35-hour week for all workers. But we're not living in the past. We're living in austerity Britain today. And all those gains that all our forebears have made, all those gains are being sliced away year after year by the bosses directly or by the boss's government indirectly. And we see that this week at the TUC, the theme is quite rightly fighting together to get the Tories out. That is a real job of work. But I'd like to say that maybe it's only half a slogan. And if we had our way, we'd like to add not only fight together to get the Tories out, but fight to replace it with a clear socialist Corbyn government. After 20 years, the rich are being bailed out and the working class are being driven out. The oligarchs are getting richer and the working class are going to food banks. This week we've had a report from a think tank of the great and the good, called the IPPR, which includes the Archbishop and, of course, Francis O'Grady of the TUC. And they have come to the conclusion that if the employers don't change, capitalism is in danger. A think tank of archbishops, of economists, have come to the conclusion that there's trouble ahead. They've said to the employers, they've wagged their fingers, it's immoral that you don't pay decent pay. It's absolutely disgraceful that people have to go to food banks and can't put food on the table for 4 million children every night. It's an absolute disgrace. And we support what they say. Their sentiments are well worthwhile, especially when they say there should be at least 50% union membership and there should be higher wages. Well, forgive me, but I thought that was the job not of think tanks, but of the trade unions themselves. And I think that's what needs to come forward at the meeting, the Congress this week. Some employers will, in theory, support increased wages, but not in practice. Of course they want more money in the system, but they don't want their money in the system. I recently read that Warren Buffett, an American hedge fund speculator, one of the richest men in the world, said, "There's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning." What a frightening thought. And he's not the only one. We had our own richest man, Ratcliffe of the infamous Ineos, who trampled all over the workers at Grangemouth in a battle there. He's the richest man in Britain, except he doesn't live in Britain now, he lives in Monaco because he won't pay his taxes. But these are the people who are actively waging war. They're turning the screw, squeezing every drop out of every worker. And when you consider the future is really bleak for all our young people, and as some have pointed out, even this think tank, that could lead to serious unrest if the trade union movement fails to focus their anger and direct them into the collective struggle against the 1%. Bosses can't believe their luck. They're amused. Why aren't the workers kicking up a fuss for better pay? Well, the truth is, and we know it, it's the job of union leaders. It's the union leaders that have to kick up that fuss. The leaders at the conference this week, leaders at a national, a regional and a local level need to start kicking up a fuss. They need to discuss a strategy and raise a clear carrying call to workers. Organise. demonstrate, strike together in a massive show of strength. Brothers and sisters, we did that in 2011 over the pensions. We fired up millions of people to come out on strike and have a mass demonstration in London. Hyde Park was awash with union banners, but unfortunately they didn't follow through. We say there is no other way. We have to go on to the offensive. Or as someone famous said, there is no alternative. We would say there is no alternative to class struggle, and that's what this week should be all about, and that's what we are discussing here in this rally today. So I'm going now to start off our speakers. We have several here and several waiting to speak in the audience. After we've heard the main platform speakers, there are several people from disputes who want to have a few words. We're hoping to finish in good time to be able to gather ourselves and our banners and this time march in that direction over to the conference centre and have a bit of an open mic outside the conference centre. So that's the plan for the afternoon. And I'm going to introduce Mick Cash of the RMT first, but just before he actually speaks, we've been informed that a very militant and active RMT member has recently died in the northeast. His name was Stan Herschel, and we would like to honour his memory as an active RMT organiser and, of course, a strong supporter of the NSSN, Stan Herschel. So could I just ask everybody to do a round of applause? Mick Cash, General Secretary at RMT.
I hope you can hear me. And thanks very much for that tribute to Stan Herschel, who was one of the key players in the campaign for keeping us as a fighting democratic union. And one of the legacies of the work that he and others done, by the way, is what we do today as a trade union. Direct correlation between the movement to modernise us as a trade union and make us more democratic, member-led. By the way, I agree that trade unions leaders have got to do more in this country, but actually it's trade union members that actually should lead the movement and lead the unions, and that's what we should be seeing more and more, and we should encourage that to happen, because that's what we're seeing in regards to the disputes that we're in at this moment in time. I'll just in case anybody says anything to me, I've got my credentials here. It says staff. I'm on the General Council. That's the reason why I've got a TUC label saying staff. So if you see a few of us trade union leaders, you might be taken off me after this speech today, but I never know. It was strange. The first time I thought I've now become a member of the TUC staff. So well done. I hope it doesn't mean that. Well, you never know. You might see a bigger change. Now that we're us TUC General Council members and members of staff, might see a real movement and change in direction. And I'll come on to a particular issue of what's happening in this conference later on, just before I finish. But I do want to pay tribute and record the achievements of us as a trade union, our members of the trade union. You mentioned it, but the guards dispute. Almost 3 years now, some of our members on Southern have been taking industrial action. It's been one of the longest running disputes in our union's history. If you look up there, by the way, is just up there on the wall is a stained glass frieze to the Amalgamated Society of Railway Servants. We were founded in 1871, so we'll be 50 years, 150 years old in a couple of years' time. So we'll be making celebrations of that. But, you know, we as a union have and are proud of our members in the Guards fraternity of the union for the campaign that they've done to keep a guard on the train, to keep our railways safe, secure and accessible. And it ain't been easy. It's been a very difficult campaign, as those would say. And certainly the length and the duration of it says that. But there's no doubt one of the most inspiring things I've seen as a trade union member, and I'm 40 years in my union this year, and an officer and a leader of the union, the inspiration of those guards, their determination to see this through to the end is awe-inspiring. And it's in the best traditions of not only the R&T, the NUR and predecessors, but of our whole movement. And I think we should applaud that for what they're doing, because they're still in there. They're getting the results. We've kept 5 minutes left. We've kept the guards. I've got 20 minutes to speak. But I did say I was only going to speak. But we've kept a guard on trains in Scotland, in Wales, in Liverpool, in Greater Anglia. We've got 2 disputes, Arriva Rail North and South Western, going. And just recently, the Tories introduced the anti-trade union law last year to try and stop workers fighting. We've now, this week, announced a fresh ballot result, 3 ballots in the last year on South Western Railways, where we've got a mandate for another 6 months from our members. And those Tories, they have not winning the game. They're not winning what they tried to do when they introduced the law to stop us fighting. And our members of South Western Railways and elsewhere are proving that if you want to take them on, they'll fight back. Because that ballot result was brilliant. A 71% turnout, 87% people voting yes, despite the fact they've been on industrial action for almost a year and they'll continue to do so. So we have to recognise and continue that struggle, and we will do. And thanks everybody for the support. But just to make it worse, we've got Chris Grayling, who's the Secretary of State for Transport. He's now trying to blame transport workers, hard-pressed, hard-working transport workers, for the cost of the industry, not privatisation or for the greed of the private sector. Actually blame us and put a cap on our wages, our members' wages. Well, I tell you this now, we're going to smash that cap. We ain't going to take it. We're going to take and coordinate industrial action to stop them. But also we need change, fundamental change. We've now got Tory MPs even saying that the railway industry is broken, the franchise system is broken. We are now in a position where not only is Labour saying it, but Tories are saying it. That's why we need renationalisation of our railways. We need it now. But of course, that ain't going to happen unless we get a change of government and a Jeremy Corbyn-led government. I could do this for 3 minutes, by the way. So thanks very much for that. That's 3.5. I'm negotiating already still. Because, you know, one of the things that's starting to worry me about where we are, and is this what's going on here today. I've just got an email, and I'm just going to read it to you. This is from Francis O'Grady. Our position on Brexit. It says, "Dear Michael," only my family called me Michael. So, but it's nice to get an email. "I'm writing to talk to you about Brexit. Talk about what the TUC's position on Brexit is. Today, I want to give the Prime Minister notice that if her deal doesn't deliver for working people, then this country's trade unions will mobilise to win a deal that does." Francis O'Grady is writing to me, Michael Cash, saying we're going to have a general strike. That's why I read it. Because we're going to win a deal. How are you going to win a deal? The only way you're going to win a deal is to mobilise, is to get on the streets, is to fight back, is to turn around and win a best possible deal for people in this country. The whole issue we've now got, and it isn't about, and I hope it isn't about, because there's a video of this, about a people's vote, a so-called people's vote. I'm hearing that's being said now. What's a people's vote? Another referendum. That's what they're starting to say. We want another referendum. But they won't call it referendum. Arose by another name. People's vote means a referendum. And we do not want another referendum. Our members voted the way they voted against Brexit because they were sick of austerity, sick of privatisation, sick of the race to the bottom. And if we're going to be in a position where we as a movement are going to mobilise against that, then we need to be on the streets fighting that. But we also need to make it quite clear, we're not going to stand by and see a situation where they play with fire, which is what they do. Ignore the votes of our members and ordinary working people who are not our members. 30 million people in this country, only 6 million in the trade union. 30 million. If people in the TUC, if the leadership of the TUC wants to figure out how we solve the problems that we've got, it's getting 30 million people in the trade union, not trying to turn around and create another referendum, which they don't want, which we don't need. But we do need a change of government that can get a deal for us. That's what we want to do. So I have two things happens at this conference. We're putting an emergency resolution up on the pay for rail workers to say support our smash the gradings cap. I hope we get support for that. I believe we'll get it. In actual fact, I demand it, because nobody should have the pay cuts that we've said over the last 20 years. But also I want to say this. There's a General Council statement and resolutions on Brexit. Oppose them. Vote against them. Because I tell you this now, it's disingenuous to turn around and say to people, we want a people's vote, when all you're trying to do is read that vote where people voted against Brexit. We need to make sure we respect that vote, get a government who can get us a deal that respects that vote, but not turn around and have another referendum. So look, thanks very much for inviting me today. NSSN do a great job. We need to mobilise more, we need to support each other up more, and we continue to do so. Thanks very much for what you do. Continue what you're doing. Get out there and mobilise. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Mick for that very rousing speech. We'll pass on now to CWU Deputy General Secretary Terry Pullinger. Just before he speaks, I'd like to say Terry spoke at the NSSN conference in July, which we have every year. And out of that, into his magazine, in the CWU magazine, there's a great report about that conference and very complimentary. And we were complimentary to Terry's speech as well. So I'll compliment him again and ask him to speak.
For that, and let's hope I don't ruin it today. I don't want to burst Mick's bubble, but I got that email and all from I think probably every delegate as well. So listen, unfortunately I've got to shoot off as well, and it's not the prima donna bit, and I know I'd rather face your stick for that than not coming here at all, because what I said at that conference is about the third time I've been asked to come here, and it's an absolute honour as far as I'm concerned to come and speak at this particular forum. And local representatives, grassroots representatives, I think the whole concept is extremely important, and we mustn't forget, because that's where it starts, and in truth that's where it's in if we don't get it right at local level, at the fighting level in the union. And it's good for people that have been elected up through the union. And I never take that for granted, the position I hold. I have to stand for election every fifth year as a national officer. I've had to do that for the last nearly 20 years now. So I think that's important, because you don't forget the people at local level. But it is easy to drift off. It's easy to start talking about the bigger issues. But it's also easy to become irrelevant to the people in the workplace as a trade union. And that's where I think trade unions have been losing ground and losing potential membership. You have to build something that people can relate to, that they see fighting to them on a daily basis. So I'll take you back to our dispute, and I'm sorry if people have heard it before, but I want to say solidarity, by the way, to everyone who's in dispute from the CWU, because we are a fighting union. I wouldn't want to belong to it if it wasn't a fighting union. And I think every union should look in the mirror and can it categorise itself as a workplace fighting trade union, because that should be the measure of a trade union in our opinion. We all know it's tough, we all know the odds are stacked against us and everything else, but someone said here about, you know, losing a dispute. I've got to say to you, I've got a philosophy that I always say to our members, especially when we're in a position where we're taking action. And I believe it as well, all through the trade union movement. I don't have it that anybody lost. I think the moment you decide to fight, you can't lose. Because at the end of the day, what you know, you never swallowed it. And that's what's important. The more people don't fight, the more they push, the more they want to get away with what people are getting away with, companies are getting away with. And I tell you, there's a generational issue there. It's not even just this generation. How do we even dare to start talking about the next generation? Our grandchildren. What is working life going to be like for them people? No pensions, no real decent terms and conditions, not being able to buy an house, not being able to have any quality of life. What sort of world are we building here for the next generation of people? And if anyone's going to stand up and hold the mirror up to politicians and society, then surely it has to be a trade union. Whatever government's in power, we've always had to fight because employers will always try to get away with it. So we focus on ourselves. Make ourselves as strong as possible. Of course we campaign for the right governments, but we never show any weakness, because once you do, that will become exploited. So our dispute with Royal Mail, 2 years that effectively went on for. We called it the 4 pillars, people may recognise it, and the employer had made a decision to smash our trade union. They looked at history and thought, now this is the time for a very labour-intensive company, over 140,000 people, it's our time to take them on. They told us we wasn't representing our members. And I'll tell you what we did, and it was one of the greatest therapeutic exercises for our trade union, the CWU. We want to call ourselves a fighting union in every speech we do, in every forum, then we had to prove it. Yeah. This was the time for us to prove it. And I'll tell you how we did it. We didn't do it by just courting our senior reps, courting our divisional reps, or courting our branch secretaries. We went into every single workplace in the country. We called meetings of all our local reps, because we knew if we were going to deliver a yes vote, we had to have local activists on board. People who judged the union every day in their workplace needed to know we were fighting for the right things for them, and we were determined. We had the new Tory legislation, but as everyone, a lot of people may know now, we delivered a 78% return and an 89% yes vote for industrial action. And to be clear, that dispute was about, we drew a line with all the abuse that was going on locally, where they're trying to bully people and drive through, you know, chipping away at us, if you like, trying to do things selectively. We drew a line and said this was the dispute where we wanted to deliver an agreement that would protect us for the future as well, protect future postal workers. One of their proposals was, in the end, well, okay, all your existing people can have this, but all the new people get something less. And the credit to our members and our activists, we refused to pull up the ladder on the next generation, and we held out for the deal for both our current postal workers and any new ones who join us. We addressed the issue of pensions. Our pension scheme was closing. The only alternative at the moment is DC for workers. People are being auto-enrolled into pensions, whoopee, but have a look what they are in pensions. You ask them, over 50% of them people, the employer's paying less than a 4% contribution to that pension. It will deliver nothing for those people. They will never be able to retire at the right time, with dignity and with security in their retirement, standard of living security. People won't be able to retire again unless trade unions and political leaders start to fight again and hold the mirror up on the issue of pensions. They're not good enough. Our DB scheme had to close. Billions of pounds had to go into it. But we negotiated for a CDC scheme. Collective. That is the answer, and it always has been for us. We achieve more collectively than we do as individuals, and we should promote that aspect, and other people will come into trade unions if you're fighting for the right issues. We addressed a shorter working week because of the fourth industrial revolution, because automation that's coming in is going to take people's jobs away. What are we going to end up as a nation on part-time, on gig economy terms and conditions? It's now that trade unions have got to start saying no, regardless of how unreasonable you think we are, we're not just thinking about us, we're thinking about the next generation. And it does have to come from the shop floor. And if you don't think your union's doing it enough, then you bring the pressure from the shop floor. You put the pressure through your democratic processes and hold people to account. It ain't easy. We always get accused of letting people down. But we're getting on that one. We've got an agreement that is our foundation for the future. But does it ever stop? No. And what we did with that dispute is mobilise our members locally to say, listen, if someone's getting picked on in the workplace, if someone's being bullied, if you're not being treated with respect, then you walk out, all of you. Walk out, cause a flash to them, and we come and solve it. Royal Mail management have said to me, we're concerned. We've had more disputes since we made that agreement than we had before. And I've said to them, because I've said it on videos, goes out on Facebook, they see it. Well, I'll tell you what, if it's for the right reasons, then I welcome it. Because part of our agreement was addressing culture and treating people with respect. And if your managers ain't doing it in every workplace, then I'll encourage everyone to walk out. You made an agreement with us, you sort them people out. The answer to the future is not to abuse ordinary, decent working people. It's to respect them and give them a decent life and a decent life for the next generation. Thank you very much.
Is anybody outside? Do you want to just try and get in some of the free chairs that are there? I just have to say that there's a few of our speakers have had to go early, and we're still waiting for a few who are at various delegation meetings. But now it's the turn of Janice Godridge, President of PCS.
And thank you for the invite to speak at the annual pre-TUC NSSN meeting. And clearly it's an opportunity for unions to set the scene in advance of the start of Congress, but importantly, as the other speakers have referred to, opportunity to build for solidarity on the conference floor in order to ensure that the most progressive policies get adopted by the TUC. Colleagues, only a few weeks ago, really, our union won a tremendous ballot result in which our members endorsed the call for strike action in pursuit of our national pay claim. We were prevented from taking that action because we'd not reached the threshold imposed by the Tory Trade Union Act. But let me be clear, that doesn't mean the end of our campaign. On the contrary, the anger generated by this refusal to allow workers their fundamental right to withdraw their labour by imposing thresholds on ballots that apply nowhere else in society, and certainly not for the politicians that impose them, means that that fight will go on. We will legally challenge the Tories' refusal to allow electronic balloting in such ballots. We will concentrate on building our organisational strength as a union, and whilst we continue to build for action in departmental groups for this year's pay round, we will not play management's game of selling terms and conditions for scraps. So well done to our activists and our reps in the Ministry of Justice who did so decisively rejected such an attempt by their management to impose that on them. And let me also be clear about something we won't do. We won't effectively set aside our national pay campaign by allowing the government to further entrench and exploit departmental bargaining to divide us all at the expense of all. We will continue with our national pay campaign, and whilst coordinating the fight in those areas, we can this year now consult and prepare for a pay campaign launched in 2019. But let me make this point, a point we have made at every meeting, conference and discussion over the last years. The only way we can guarantee that all public sector workers, including civil servants, will get a fair deal is through collective action across the public sector unions. And let's have no more excuses and build for that joint action in 2019. Now, there's been a wee bit of shenanigans in the run-up to Congress over our resolution on building the public sector pay campaign. But in the words of the bard, all's well that ends well. And PCS have now got an opportunity to move an emergency motion on pay that allows us to reiterate our demands. But the movement as a whole must recognise that the denial of the right to strike cannot stand. It's not just an organisational question or a legal question, it's a question of basic human rights. Nor is it just an industrial question, it's a political question. So we welcome the call by Jeremy Corbyn to restore trade union rights, but our movement can't just wait for that. We've got to build an effective strategy so we're capable of collectively responding to such injustices. Yes, PCS has fought industrially, but politically too. We absolutely rejected the view, sadly reflected initially in some areas of our movement, that there was no alternative to austerity, cuts and privatisation. That is a lie, and it always was. We produced our alternative to austerity, demonstrating it was a political choice, made in the interests of a few, and not an economic choice made in the interests of millions. Before coming here today, I reflected on the role PCS and other unions with left leaderships have played over these years of unrelenting attacks. And I'm proud to have been president of PCS during the time where myself, Mark Sawatka, the NEC and others have lobbied hard for united action during the pensions dispute, and had that alliance kept together, I've no doubt we would have certainly won greater concessions and may even have won. And it's not rocket science. We've repeated this message every year, as someone said, almost to the point of boredom. These attacks are stemmed from the same source, and we have to fight them together. We were pleased to see many of the points in our alternative reflected in the Corbyn manifesto that played such a role in wiping a bit of a smug smile off Theresa May's face at the last election. And following our conference this year, we will now consult our members on the best way to help secure a Corbyn-led government. As someone who lives in Scotland, I'm well aware that Labour has burnt many bridges, but I'm sure we can all agree that securing a Corbyn victory will be a step forward for workers wherever they are. I'm standing for the TUC General Council this year in the Women's section, and I hope to take that policy of united action and else into that form. Because whilst we fight to get this government out on the political field, I strongly believe we've got to do it on the industrial too. But let me finish on this point. A few weeks ago I spoke in Glasgow in opposition to the visit by Donald Trump. We oppose him because of his reactionary views, and to express our revulsion at his attacks on what seems to be a never-ending list of people that he considers to be enemies, including black and other oppressed minority people, gay, lesbian and transgender men and women. He also hates immigrants. He hates trade unionists. He hates women. He hates anyone who dares challenge his view that the world should just be run by the rich and powerful. He hates anyone who opposes capitalism and anyone who opposes American imperialism. We all protested against those repulsive views. But there should be no sense of smugness on our part. No sense that here things in Britain and Europe are so much different. Trump is the latest and most concerning product of a process that is a direct line taken in Thatcher, Blairism and Obama. It's a direct consequence of the great lie that there's no alternative to the market. It's a direct consequence of warmongering foreign policies of not only the US, but of Britain and other Western powers. It's a direct confidence of a failure by our own movement to organise in the most effective, coordinated way a clear and unequivocal response to austerity. Here's a simple example. The American insurance companies are salivating at the prospect of the billions in profits that they can expect from trade deals with the Tories from the privatisation of the NHS. And that privatisation is going ahead. The NHS is the greatest game ever won by our class, and yet it's been stolen from us. And future generations may look back in bewilderment if the NSS is destroyed without the British trade union movement taking even one day of collective action in defiance of it. We see an alarming spike in the confidence of the far right, even to the point that they think they can get away with attacking a socialist trade union leader like Steve Headley of the RMT in broad daylight. and we have to effectively organise to stop this poison. So we were right to protest against Trump, but let's be clear, if you accept privatisation as a fact of life, if you just accept whatever scraps the Tories throw to us in wages, if you meekly implement Westminster cuts, if you implement Tory council cuts, if your internationalism stops at the borders of the EU, if you're not prepared to fully support the right to national self-determination, then you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. Comrades, we have a weak, divided government in disarray over Brexit, forced to conspire with attacks on a man who has spent his whole life campaigning for peace by declaring him an anti-Semite. It's an absolute disgrace when within that party are some of the worst misogynists and racists in politics. Not only hope but action. Our movement can and must build the possible widest alliance against his message of fear, hostility and despair, and that means a clear socialist alternative. An alternative based on tolerance and respect, where every human being is entitled to live their life in a dignified manner, free of hate, oppression and repression. A life where every human being has the means to reach their full potential. And yes, that means not just defence of our public services, but their improvement free and at the point of need. If we are to defend what we have and go on to build a better world, then let's fund this protest and fight as we've never done before, not only to beat Trumpism, but also to defeat May and this broken Tory government. Solidarity and socialism.
Thank you, Janice. And we move on now to our next speaker, Ronnie Draper of the Food Workers Union, a regular speaker and a great supporter.
We're only 171 years old this year, and people still got our name wrong, so just let's stick to Quakers Union. We'll manage with that, yeah. We've got one of our founding members over there. A bit more reverence for me, please. I've got to say, it's always a pleasure to speak to the NSSN, the greatest attended fringe meeting at any TUC. It's always an honour to come and speak there. And there are anniversaries this year, the 150th of the TUC. My own union held its 100th conference this year, despite the fact that there were 171. We missed a few years out, we probably couldn't afford to have one. Or wars broke out and stuff like that, and our members were away fighting and feeding the troops. Well, you know, if you think about it, over those 171 years that we've been fighting, we're still fighting for some of the same things now that we were fighting for then. You know, fighting against poverty wages, fighting for pensions, fighting for decent treatment, fighting for guards on trains, all that sort of... No, I was only kidding about that. Fighting for all these things, but another anniversary, I think it's a really important anniversary this year. On Thursday was the 5th anniversary of the victory against Hovis, a dispute that many of you in this room helped us to win. So I think that's something that everybody here can take some sense of pride from, and it shows when Terry talks about industrial action. Industrial action does work. Don't let anybody ever tell you that fighting, you lose out. Well, you know, September the 4th last year, we took part for the first time in a historic strike against McDonald's. And people said on the press, yeah, but it was only a handful of people. They employ 119,000 people in this country. But I'll tell you what, it affected those 119,000 in the fact that they all got the best pay rise they've ever had because of those. Because of those brave young people who took a stance against the second biggest employer in the world, the biggest serial exploiter of workers' rights in the world. A CEO, Steve Easterbrook, who's from Watford, to his shame, who earns more than $15 million whilst he keeps people who work for him on poverty pay and poverty terms and conditions. That we are about to change. We've got rid of the zero-hour contract concept within McDonald's. I see that as being a victory. We've stopped much of the bullying and harassment and sexual harassment that happened in shops. So yeah, it's still going on today, but I'll tell you what, we're fighting back. And I'll tell you what else is going to be historic this year. We're going to see, for the first time ever, Wetherspoons coming out on strike. Very soon. And I know also the brave workers within TGI, and I'm not going to steal Howard's thunder because I'm sure he wants to mention that. But I'll tell you what, wouldn't it be a great coincidence if we could all come out together? Can't give you any dates because we haven't told the employees yet. We're keeping that secret from at the moment. But wouldn't it be a great coincidence? And wouldn't it be a great coincidence if everyone here went and stood outside another McDonald's or a TGI's or a Wetherspoons and protested and got people to join the unions? And I don't mind telling my members and my officials, and I've got one of my officials there, if you sign somebody from TGI's, do it and hand them over to Unite. And I won't Unite do exactly the same when it comes to McDonald's and any other union. I spoke in Tunbridge Wells on Friday, and they took 200 of our cards, and people, activists in there, a really Tory area, said, we're going to go out and we're going to get these filled in with Baker's Food and Allied Workers Union members. And I told them, yeah, but if you fill in any TGI ones and you send them to us, we're sending them on to Unite. Only scored 5 out of 10 this time. I'm sure we got more than that. Comrades, you know, we're under pressure. We have to change the way that things are going. I mean, May, to tell us that, you know, the Tories are now the party of working people. Well, let me say this to you. Government who support working people don't bring in a living wage without bringing in protections. And this TUC last year passed a motion that says that we should get protections. We still haven't got it. I'm not even sure the lobby's taken place to get it, but we have to get protections for working people who are exploited by their employer. A government of the people doesn't bring in a trade union act that then seeks to hamstring workers from taking strike action. And that's why the message has got to go out. You can't stay in this room. We have to go back to our members and we tell our members that you have to come out and strike. You have to do it because you're never going to gain anything in this world without fighting for it. Decent pay, holidays, pension, all the things that we mentioned at this meeting, all the things that we mentioned all week were fought for. There was nothing that was given to us by generous employers. These were all things that working people like you and I fought for over the years. And we've got to make sure that we protect them. But I want to finish off by saying, we also need a sympathetic government. We're never going to achieve everything on our own. We need a government that is going to legislate for us as well and to help us along. And we've got to make sure that the party is united. Got my marks going down out by a minute. We've got to make sure that we've got a government in power that is supportive of itself as well as us. Shame on those rebels within the Labour Party who are undermining Corbyn. Shame on them. If you don't like our party, then fuck off. I've been in this party 45 years old, by the 3 weeks when he threw me out. I'm back in though, so 45 years, less 3 weeks. And I'll tell you what, this is the leader that I've waited all my life for. This is the leadership with McDonald that I have waited all that time. The manifesto is the manifesto that I've dreamt of since I was 18 and first went to work. But we're not going to get it unless we support him with the same thing. And I've got to say, shame on those trade union leaders who are undermining them as well, because it isn't just... I hear it when I go out and speak at meetings and people say, well, our union, you know, we don't really support Corbyn. Our leadership tells us we shouldn't. Well, I'm telling you what, we need a Corbyn government. We need to make sure that he's on any ballot in future automatically. And this union, the BFAW, will not vote for any thresholds. He should be on there automatically, and I hope every other trade union in this room does exactly the same. Comrades, we have the will, we have the power to change this country. Let's not just do this clap hands, standing ovations here, or when we go back to the hall. Let's commit to doing something. Let's commit to changing the world that we live in. Not just for us, but for the people that Terry was talking about, the young people who are coming through, those who won't get homes in the future, those who won't get pensions in the future, those who will be living on poverty pay for the rest of their lives. We can change that today by the will of us, going out and committing other people to doing the same. Comrades, thank you for attending the meeting. Please go out and do something like solidarity.
Okay, thanks again, Ronnie, for that rousing speech. We're going to move on now to unite the union. We are waiting for a couple of other speakers to come along, so we'll have to see how it goes. But our next speaker is Unite Assistant General Secretary, Howard Beckett.
My boss has just walked into the room, so I'm not sure if I'm changing my speech or not. But Lenny McCluskey's just walked into the room. So whenever I attended this rally 12 months ago with permanent bins workers, and my convener, Richard Beddoes, spoke so passionately about his dispute. Unite at that time was not affiliated to the National Shop Stewards Network. I am speaking here today at this rally, and Unite is affiliated to the National Shop. Let me just give a recap in respect of the Birmingham Bins dispute, because it says so much about our movement and about where we are. 109 redundancy notices issued by a Labour council. Our members given 4 weeks, told to get off the back of the bins or lose £5,000 a person. Our members stood firm. They balloted twice during that action. In the second ballot, they got over 90% turnout and an over 90% yes vote to continue the industrial action. Now, sadly, other unions who one did ballot and didn't hit the threshold and one didn't ballot at all, didn't share the same instincts as us as to how to win a dispute. Now, 12 months on from that dispute, we don't have 109 of grade 3s in the bins. We have 167 grade 3s in the bins. An extra 56 crews going out because the council wanted to move to a 5-day week. A council that told working people that they had to lose £5,000 a year, found £4.5 million to improve the service because of the fight that Unite took to their doorstep. Sadly, and here's the truth of this, and it's probably the truth of life, past behaviour is often an indicator of future behaviour. And we have in this room care workers from Unison who are fighting exactly the same fight as the bin workers of Birmingham fought 12 months ago. A Labour council that wants to make savings in respect of its services, and what's the answer? Cut the hours and cut the wages of working class people. It cannot happen again. So solidarity to all of the care workers here. I do want to give a stand out for my own union, Unite. 1,000 disputes in the last 3 years. A strike fund of over £36 million. Regional strike funds being created. Grant strike funds being created. Regional disputes being created. And yes, not one single repudiation of our members' actions since Len McCluskey became General Secretary. And comrades, that's because we've responded to the Trade Union Act. We know how to hit the thresholds. We're doing it again and again and again. And not just a single 50% threshold, but the double threshold. Luton Airport, where we hit the double threshold despite all that was put up against us, because of the activity that we have, because of what Terry talked about, because of mobilising people on the floor, and because we respond to it properly. And people need to think, and the TUC need to think, about what that Trade Union Act did not do. It did not prevent us giving financial support to those who are in struggle. It did not prevent us from picking employees who should go out and strike, the category that should go out and strike. It did not prevent us, whenever we have a multi-site employer, from picking the site that should go out and strike, and the other side saying that they will support that strike until the dispute is won. Those are the things that it did not prevent us from doing. So whenever we find ourselves here in this position, and there's calls for action and calls for us to do more, think about whether or not it's beyond the realms of possibility for Birmingham bins to be on strike at the same time as Manchester bins, at the same time as Newcastle bins, at the same time as Liverpool bins, and at the same time as Southampton bins, another dispute that Unite won. because it is not beyond the realms of possibility for that to happen. It is not beyond the realms of possibility for us all to say no more to insecure work, no more to zero-hour contracts, no more to the abuse of agency workers, and no more to the abuse of young. It is not beyond the realms of possibilities for that to happen, but we have to be speaking as one voice. Other trade union leaders have to follow the example of Len McCluskey in saying that if there is no purpose in us as a trade union, there is no purpose in us, full stop. We are nothing if not a moral crusade, and we must fight, and never has the time been more. Birmingham, where we still see the cuts, 40% of children born into poverty, 58,000 people, according to Trussell Trust, who are living from hand to mouth in hunger every single day, and that is a Labour council that needs to be held to account again and again and again, and it is our movement. When we talk about our movement holding people to account, let's be honest that it has to be people who believe in what we believe in. I come from a country that knows a bit about sectarianism, and I'll tell you now, those who use language in 2006 that they apologised for in 2013, where they call people trash, are dehumanising people and using sectarian language. Those who refer to those who want to change society and know how to fight for that changed society, those who call them dogs, are calling them in a sectarian language that has no place in our movement. So let's be honest in respect of the calls that we've heard. Let's be honest about Chuka Umunna, who voted to bomb Syria, who stood at silent whenever the Tories brought in their welfare bill, cutting benefits for the most vulnerable in society, who weaponises the issue of Europe, regardless of what's in the interest of working class people, simply to divide and attack Jeremy Corbyn, who institutionalised, calls the Labour Party institutionalised racists, whenever he came from what? A private school background that knows nothing about our movement? Let's be honest about people like him. If you aren't with us, if you aren't with what we demand and the change that we want, then you're as against us as the Tory party. Yeah. Let's be honest also about the people that he is talking about Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. People who have decades of pedigree in standing by the working class of our communities. People who have never shirked from a hard vote, never been pressurised to do something that they know is wrong. People who will always stand up for our class. Those are the people that are being called out as if they are somehow now racist after decades of standing for people regardless of religion or colour. Those are the people who will change society. So listen, for all of us, all of the trade union leaders, all of those who influence Labour Party, all of those in charge of council reserve funds, all of those at the sharp end of where austerity hits our class, the rainy day has come. The mirror is now up against each and every one of you. Call yourselves a socialist and no longer stand up for the cuts that they bring in vision of everybody. It is time for us to say to our children of the next generation, we can do better than you've been given, and it is time to say to the older generation, we can give you the security that you deserve. Comrade, solidarity.
Thanks, Howard. We can always rely on Unite to give a rousing speech. And I also see that Comrade Lenny McCluskey has sort of popped his head into the room. And since we have one of our speakers missing, would Lenny like to sort of fill that space for a minute or two? Lenny McCluskey.
No, I know. And I don't mind coming off the subs bench, especially at a gathering like this, although I have to tell you, Howard's pinched most of my lines. Well, look, colleagues, comrades, I did want to call here today. I'm between meetings, I'm running from one meeting to another, but I wanted to come here to thank you. To thank the National Shop Stewards Network for the work that you do in, day out, week in, week out, right throughout the year, standing on picket lines, supporting workers in struggle. You do a fantastic job, and I want you to know that I and my union appreciate what you do. When workers are in struggle, you know, it's the most important dispute, as far as they're concerned, in the world. They often are fighting against huge odds, powerful employers, the media who are deeply biased against them. And to have people standing alongside them from other workplaces, giving them solidarity, is an enormous boost for them. It's a fact of life that workers' solidarity is the one thing that the bosses' class don't understand. Despite their wealth and their power, they don't understand what we have that courses through our very veins, that issue of solidarity. And I've experienced that many, many times in my life. I've experienced it when I've been on strike myself, before I became an official of the union. How important it was to get solidarity messages and solidarity action from other groups of workers. It's why, of course, the Tories, in their initial onslaught on the trade union movement, attacked the whole question of so-called secondary action, trying to make it illegal, because the one thing that they need and understand in order to break the working class is to try and separate us. And that's precisely why your organisation is so important in keeping that alive. Howard spoke about the issue within Unite of standing shoulder to shoulder with our members. I've always believed that if trade unions can't stand shoulder to shoulder with workers who are in struggle and believe it's the most important thing and expect their union to be there, then what are we about? Why do we exist? If all we want to do is come up with excuses as to why we can't support workers in struggle. Now, it's true to say that when I became General Secretary, I made the decision that I was never ever going to repudiate any strike of my members. And that will remain the case until I step down, and hopefully those that come after me will continue that particular principle. It was easy to suggest as a principle, but of course you need support. And I should say that one of the individuals who's been key in making certain that we dodge the bullets is Howard Beckett himself as my AGS for legal. Nobody's better qualified than knowing how to duck and dive than Howard. We literally have hundreds of solicitors' letters and injunctions placed against us. But it's never altered us offering that support, because that's what we are about. Once we start complying with legislation that is deliberately there to emasculate our movement, then it is time for us to grapple. And I'll always have a view that we should oppose bad laws. I was once asked continually in interviews, they must have got to the point where they're fed up asking me now, that surely you must accept the rule of law. No, we have a duty to reject bad laws. And if our forefathers and mothers hadn't done the same, then we wouldn't be here now. When a law is bad, when it's designed specifically to attack working people, then we must, as a duty, oppose it, not seek reasons why we should support it. Because, of course, the bosses' class, the elite, the corporate elite, they pick and choose the laws that they want to. ILO laws, ILO constitutions that are embraced by the United Nations would make illegal most of the trade union legislation that we have today. But they choose to ignore that part of the law. They pick and choose the law, just as they pick and choose the law in relation to Israel. Completely a rogue state going against international law, but backed up by Western powers, America and Britain and others, because that's really not a law that they want to take any notice of. So don't be having any hypocritical nonsense from people telling you that we have to abide by the law. That anti-trade union law, of course, has been in place despite the fact that we had 13 years of a Labour government. 13 years of a Labour government supposed to be on the side of working people and never did a jot to assist organised labour. In fact, a man who's been in the headlines just recently, Tony Blair, once told a business audience that they need not worry about Labour coming to power. Labour had the most restrictive trade union laws against workers, and it would remain that way, said Tony, in order to make certain that his pals in the audience were comfortable with him. As has been said by Ronnie, he's gone now I think, but what a fantastic campaign they're engaged in, what courage they have to take on McDonald's, and my union will do everything we can in giving support both financially and physically to the Bakers Union. But the reality is, of course, that we now have a leader of the Labour Party who does want to stand with us. Him and John McDonnell, proud to stand on picket lines, proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with working people. And that's precisely the type of leadership our movement wants. Remember, it's not so long ago that Lord Mandelson said we should all be relaxed about the filthy rich. Well, perhaps it was because he knew he was going to become one of them. The truth is, you don't want your leaders to be saying that. You want leaders like Jeremy and John to stand shoulder to shoulder. Howard's covered Chuka and a number of others. I'm going to make a prediction. In the next few weeks, you'll hear the language bullying, intolerance, intimidation used over and over again. I've got another word for it. It's called accountability. Yeah. It's saying to Labour MPs and Labour councils, and I'll make a quick comment about that, it's saying to them that they don't have a job for life. They are there to represent the wishes of ordinary working people, to fight for us. And the people who go out on the streets day in, day out in the rain, knocking on doors, are the constituency Labour Party members, who they should have more respect for, rather than calling them names. That's what accountability is, and we'll fight for that as long as we possibly can. And it goes to a point that Howard made, and I'm glad he made it, about Labour councils. Labour councils who are there to fight for working people. Labour councils who are prepared to stand up to the pressures and the slings and arrows that are thrown at them. My good friend Tony Mullane is in the audience today, and I was privileged in Liverpool to see people like him stand against the establishment to fight for working people, building decent homes, delivering good services, not cutting jobs. That's what Labour councils have forgot about. And to dismiss the idea that we shouldn't use reserves in councils to protect services is unbelievable. What for? Waiting for a rainy day. Well, I've got news for them. It's fucking teeming out there. My message is simple. Stay strong. Believe in our values of solidarity and community, because I believe that will prevail. Yeah. Thanks very much.
thanks, Lenny, for the off-the-cuff remarks. Great to have the General Secretary along. Our next speaker is Amy Murphy, President of the Shop Workers Usdaw Union. Just before she speaks, I have to say that Amy is speaking in a personal capacity. Just want to make that very clear. All the other speakers who've contributed are all affiliated to the NSSN, but that work has yet to be done in the Shop Workers Union, but I know it's in their sights. So, Amy Murphy.
I'm not sure how I'm going to follow those two speakers. Obviously I was a bit late, we had our delegation meeting this morning, so I only arrived for the last two speakers and what two speakers they were. So it's probably going to go downhill from now, but I'll give it my best shot. I'm not as good at this as I might be, but it is my first term, so give it a go. I'd just like to say welcome to everyone here and thank you so much for inviting me. It really does mean a lot to be able to stand here and actually address you all here. I would love to say we're affiliated to the NSSN because they do a fantastic job, but never say never, and I'm a great believer that maybe in 2 years' time, when we can bring the proposition back that only just got defeated at our last conference to affiliate to the NSSN, that we will be the 11th union to join this fantastic movement. So, never say never. I can't believe it, it's a year since I spoke in Brighton at the NSSN, and I was running up to my campaign. I got elected in February this year as president of my union, Usdaw, and I am really proud to be in that position. It's something it's taken me 6 years at least to campaign and finally win, and I hope we're heading in a slightly different direction to what we've been used to. We've heard about change. We do need change, lots of change, and my union is no different to anyone else's. So here's to change. And I'd just like to say thanks. I know there was a lot of support out there for me, not just from my union, so I would like to thank you for the heart for that, because I wouldn't be here, standing here now in this capacity if I hadn't had that support from everyone. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to talk a bit about retail because we are the Shop Workers Union, so retail, warehouse and distribution. And I was hoping that this year I'd be standing here saying that we've had a bit of an improvement in the retail prices. Unfortunately not, it's gone from bad to worse. And unfortunately it doesn't seem to be improving anytime soon. The retail sector is facing significant pressures, in particular rising cost inflation, potential impact of Brexit, none of us know what that looks like, automation, and more importantly for us, online shopping. So what does this mean for my union and my members? In the retail, warehouse and distribution sector, already we have seen a number of high-profile companies closures on the horizon and have already gone. So that includes the collapse of Maplin, Toys R Us, House of Fraser and Mothercare. We've also seen large-scale closures in M&S, Poundworld and Carpetright. And that's just a few. The list is endless. It's clear that no retailer can consider themselves immune from the pressures of the market at this moment in time. And this is a really worrying time for the staff and our members. Even in more successful companies, like the one I work for, Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Co-op, restructuring is a word that is now the norm. And it features lots of things that are happening to our members day in, day out, including roles changing on a day-to-day basis, hours moved around, layers removed from company structures. And what does that result in? It results in job losses across the piece, no pay rises, pay freezes, erosion of premiums and terms and conditions. It's estimated that 28,000 retail jobs have been lost in 2018 already, and a further 40,000 are predicted to go before the end of the year. We are in the highest rate of retail failures recorded in the last 6 months of 2018 since the financial crash. And as I've already said, there seems to be no let-up in that. Many retailers seek to maximise flexibility to deal with fluctuations in customer demand, which has had a disastrous effect on retail workers with the rise of short-hour contracts, flexi-contracts and zero-hour contracts. 60% of our store's members are on either short or zero-hour contracts and are struggling to make ends meet, often having to bolster up their earnings by taking on a second job, which then that brings in other problems because of their availability. More and more of our members are having to rely on food banks to feed their families, and in today's age, how can that be right? Everything I have described here, I know is not just my union and my members that are in that position. Whether you work in the public sector or the private sector, all workers are suffering the same problems. Basically, the bosses screw up, and who pays the price? The working class. These are really challenging times for all our trade unions and the membership. As a rep in Tesco's, I know the pressures workplace reps face on a day-to-day basis, and I would like to pay tribute not only to my reps in our store who do a relentless job looking after their membership day in, day out, making sure that they can get the best things for their members, but every single union member in my sister unions. They work so hard and tirelessly, often they're forgotten. So I would like to place on record that they do a fantastic job, and I'm so glad that we're privileged to have them. There's a lot of work to do. At our store's annual delegate meeting back in April, we carried a proposition calling for a robust campaign for an end to zero-hour contracts and to replace them with a minimum 16-hour contract, to run alongside a campaign, our existing campaign, for £10 per hour. And I'm glad to say I can stand on this platform and say, as a union, for once we are running with this campaign. And I hope that our sister unions will, in Congress later on in the week, and I've just seen Neil prompt me here, I did have my bag, a bit like the bag lady when I walked in, but, so when you go on the our store stall, do have a look. There are leaflets there about our campaign, and we do need the support of all the unions because it does affect every single person, every worker in this country. It's not just our store's members, wherever you are, that campaign, who doesn't want £10 an hour, who doesn't want an end to zero-hour contracts, who wouldn't want a minimum of 16 hours a week. So please support that this week. And then there is one thing that, as a union, I feel that we've perhaps stalled a bit on. Again, we did have a proposition carried in 2017, and that is to lobby the government into bringing companies that have gone into administration back into public ownership. Now, that might take a little bit longer to get through, but trust me, I have got it high on my agenda, so to use my words again, never say never. So the way I see it, as a trade union movement, we need to work together. As unions, as a force to be reckoned with, we've got to work together, protect what is ours, lead campaigns that will make a real difference to every working member, and a difference. And I used to say, perhaps we should ask, but we shouldn't ask anymore. I learned that back in the summer. We should demand that our workers are treated with the respect they deserve. Thank you.
Many thanks, Amy, for that. Now, I think we've got some time to pass over to anybody who would like to make a contribution to the meeting I already know that there are various disputes who've made a special request, and I'm going to take a couple of them first.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I forgot the last speaker.
I won't say any more.
I won't say any more. It's Rob Williams of the NSSN.
That was a Freudian slip. No, I wouldn't take it personally. Comrades, first of all, can I just say, as a Unite member, how proud I am that the banner over there to my left has now the Unite logo. We nearly got us though on there this year, although I don't know if it's accidental, but we got the previous banner on an Usdo picket line down in East London this year. But I'm also proud that the NSSN is doing this today. Now, as Linda said, we've done it since 2010, and of course that's not accidental, because this is the age of Tory austerity, isn't it? But if we think about it, shouldn't the TUC be doing this? This is the 150th anniversary of the TUC. To have a rally where you invite rank and file trade unionists to come, obviously to listen to some of the leading speakers, but to contribute themselves, to give a profile to trade unionism. What an opportunity I think this would be, and of course we've stepped in and played that role as well. Now, 150 years ago in this city, the TUC was born, or rather it first met, but actually met in this building. We are actually meeting in the building that Congress took well as well. Now, no doubt we will hear a lot of speeches this week about the 150th anniversary and revel in the history of the movement. Of course, we do have to revel in our history. And if we don't defend our history, then no one else will, and we have to continue to do that as well. There will be some union leaders that will get up this week and talk about, share their pessimism, their cynicism. There will be some that say it's business as usual. There will be some who will say that if there's no debate at this conference, then everyone agrees with each other, and that's very good. Well, I think we need to sound an alarm. And that is, we don't share pessimism if the strike figures are historically low. We're not cynical if the trade union membership figures are reducing. But we don't accept it. We don't think that's any good. And we have to build the movement, and build our unions, and build our fighting capacity. Now, it wasn't so long ago, there were some trade union leaders that were grouped together. They were called the Awkward Squad. I'd like to think the NSSN is the Awkward Squad. I'd like to think that you here today and others who are not here are the Awkward Squad as well. And that means we sometimes have to be a bit awkward. We sometimes have to ask the questions and say the things that some don't want to hear, but that's necessary, because how do we take the movement forward if we don't as well? And of course, the main lesson of trade unionism is that we've never had anything given to us. Everything we've gained has been because of the struggles that we've taken as well. Now, when you talk about anniversaries, of course, one of the defining moments of our movement, of our class, happened. And we had going to skirt St. Peter's Fields, actually, on the way down to the conference centre, because 200 years ago, next year, was Peterloo. That moment where the state intervened with sword and shot to cut down some of the a generation of fighters. They thought that would deal a blow to the burgeoning movement of the working class, when actually it lit a fire underneath that movement. We revel in that history, and of course, as others have said, there's another anniversary this year as well. 10 years since the economic crisis, 10 years since the capitalist crisis that has ushered in a lost decade as far as workers are concerned. I want to give one statistic that's come out in the last two statistics rather. One, the 1.1 million public sector jobs have been lost under Tory austerity. But we now live in a world where 3.5 dozen people own as much wealth as 3.5 billion people on this planet, and of course Britain under the Tories are in the front of that movement. Linda's talked about why we organised our rally all those years ago in 2010. We organised it because the Tories had got elected and were going to unleash an austerity offensive that has changed this country, and we warned of that at the time. We said, this isn't a normal fight, it's not a normal struggle that we can take one day of action, forget about it, we'll come to an agreement and that'll be okay. We said that if we get away with it, they will unleash an offensive that can take working class people back generations. And on 2011, November the 30th, 2011, 2 million public sector workers took action again, together. That could have been a moment that could have pushed the Tories back at that time, and in our opinion, could have had a huge effect at that time. But because that action was cut short, two of those trade union leaders, by the way, have been knighted that have called off that dispute. They would say their services to trade unionism, I could say something else. But of course, that has unleashed the offensive, but of course, under Cameron and Osborne as well. Now, why is this important that we keep coming back to the TUC? Why is it particularly important this year? Well, I think it's particularly important this year because we have a Tory government that is weak and divided. We have Boris Johnson today basically starting his leadership election campaign in the Tory government. In any other period, we would be counting down to a general election where we could push the Tories out. But that is not happening because Jeremy Corbyn is the Prime Minister in waiting. And of course, every time over the last 3 years that the Tories are on the verge of imploding, then the Blairites come in just at the right time with a new reason why they have to be public and attack Corbyn in this way. Comrades, it is absolutely vital that we take on the Tories, we take on the capitalist establishment who have their agents in the Labour Party as well as elsewhere in society, and we take them on, and in my opinion, we get them out of the Labour movement, we unite against them, because these are people who not only want to stop the Jeremy Corbyn government, but should a Jeremy Corbyn government happen, they would want to take that government down, because in reality, they are more afraid of a Jeremy Corbyn government, or a government that fights austerity, than they are of a Tory government, as in that case. I also just want to say, in the last couple of minutes that I have as well, it's important that this conference, that we hold some of the trade union leaders to account in the TUC as well. We came to this conference 12 months ago and we passed unanimously a motion on the pay battle in the public sector. We passed a motion unanimously calling for coordinated action, for a national demonstration that could bring those struggles together. Well, the TUC listened to us. They organised the national demonstration. They organised it 7 months later. 7 months later, when each sector in the public sector was left isolated and left alone. And of course, as people have said, I don't need to repeat it, that the anti-union laws of the Tories have scandalously scuppered the PCS pay ballot. What other organisation or institution in society exists where a simple majority is not sufficient to have a legal battle? There would not be an elected councillor. There would, some areas, there wouldn't be elected MP if we had the same laws for the trade unions that we have in other parts of public life. But I want to make this point, and that is that the TUC hardly lifted a finger to defeat the Trade Union Act. We met 2 years ago in Brighton on the theme of Kill the Bill. We didn't have one national demonstration against the Tory Trade Union Act, and of course it's been implemented. But I take the point that Terry Pullinger has said today. There's been other battles, we're going to hear from him very soon, some of the battles that are going on at the moment. But you watch, you read our bulletin that goes out every week. You watch on social media the postal workers that are taking unofficial strike action every time they come up against the employers as well. And of course the action that we see here now of young workers, new unionism, a new generation of fighters, of migrant workers that are coming in. And I want to make this point, I haven't got much time. We know that there needs a battle against the far right in this country. But I tell you the best way to take on the far right is when the trade unions are central in that fight. And they fight on a programme that can unite working class people. I just want to finish with this very last point about the point that was raised by Mick Cash on the issue of Brexit. There are motions here today. There's going to be a statement from the TUC on the issue of Brexit, and it's talk of a popular vote. Now, the NSSN didn't particularly have a position on the referendum. We have different people in the network who have different views on Brexit. I personally think it's a massive mistake to have a second referendum and the signal that would say. But I tell you what, if people want to talk about a people's vote, if people want to talk about a popular vote against the possibility of a final deal on Brexit, I tell you what the best popular vote is, and that is a general election. Because what we need is to fight for, is to mobilise, is to demonstrate, is to strike together if necessary to bring a general election into being so we can vote for Corbyn's anti-austerity programme, because surely if we believe an anti-austerity programme like that is worth fighting for, then isn't it necessary to have a programme like that to fight for a Brexit in the interests of working people? We need to strike together, march together, we need a general election, we need to bring the Tories down, a Brexit in the interests of the workers in this country. Comrades, unity, workers' unity, get the Tories out.
Okay, thanks Rob, and many apologies for pretending he wasn't there. We now have a bit of time when we can have contributions from the comrades here. I would like to call in first Mandy of the Home Care Workers, and then Billy of the Northern Rail RMT. If you'd like just to make your way to the front, there is a mic here. But also, if you would like to make a contribution, could you just put your hand up, and we'll note anyone who wants to say something. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's fine, because I have got a few other disputes who want to say a few words. I will just say that if you don't manage to get in now, we are going to kind of pack up and all march off to the conference, and we'll have an open mic down there, so you will get a chance to say something outside. So, we just want to make sure we've got enough time to get over there. So I'll hand over now to Mandy of the Care Workers.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's been lovely to be invited to come. It's lovely to see all the trade unions together and to hear all the inspirational speeches that are going on. I'm here to explain about the home carers of Birmingham. We've been in a struggle now. It's well over 12 months. We had our first part of the dispute, like it's the redesign that came in over 18 months ago. And that was for 3 split shifts for the carers to work, which wouldn't give a work-life balance, like 7 till 10, 12 till 2, and then 4 till 10. We put the dispute in the November. We got a 54% and a 97% strike action. But also management then brought in saying they needed 40% cuts at the time, and they gained 48% cuts. Now that was with VR, that was with pushing and bullying staff out saying, can you do these 3 split shifts? Can you do this for us? If not, the job's not for you, maybe VR. 48% went last year on VR. So then, we brought in then to say for a self-roster. The self-roster, the council and the management said, yes, they're prepared to listen, yes, we did the work for the self-roster, we gave them a brilliant work roster which had consistency, the same number of staff, so that then it would get efficiency for the service. So we could keep our service and the same number of staff. They've got their cuts. We come to the Labour elections in May. They said yes, that they was going to stand by us. The self-roster would go ahead. We stopped 5 days of strike action. Now the Labour Council agreed that yes, it would go ahead. As soon as they was elected in, that we'd stopped our strike action. 2 weeks later, they cancelled the self-roster and said it wasn't going ahead. So that was with management. Then, also, our ballot was due to run out because of the government and new ballots. They thought when we reballoted, we had 48% of staff that had gone. So they thought we had no chance again to get a ballot for the 50%. This time we got a 57% and we got 97% of the Now that was due to a lot of work. We had phoning, emailing, meetings, and we are lone workers. We're not in the same place. We haven't got a group where we can go and say that's our base, our home is our base. So we never see each other. So that was absolutely brilliant, and it was vital because management thought, no, they won't get it, but we did. But what they've brought in now is even worse than the 3 split shifts. It's part-time hours. Now, you've got to recognise that there's 78% of the workforce are more or less from 30 hours to full-time, right? So then this means that they want us to go on 22 45 hours, 21 hours or 14 hours. That is a financial cut for £500 to £600 a month. Me, myself, would be £500 a month if I got to the 14 hours because I'm only 25, so I wouldn't get the other hours, and £6,000 a year. But there's other carers, it's going to be £11,000 which they're going to lose. And also, it's even worse than that, your working tax credit that we have to make our living wage. If you're on 14 hours and you've got children, you cannot apply for the benefit. If you've got no children, you've got to have 30 hours. A lot of our care workers are lone workers and they've got children or they're the only breadwinner within the house. So the effects are drastic. But also, we've had a 48% cut to our free service, which is going now to the private sector, which nobody realises is happening out there. And also now that it's going to be that our free service will be cut again by another 40%, but it'll be in hours. Now, we've got a rally on the 15th of September, which is Saturday in Birmingham, Victoria Square. Like, we need the support of all trade unions. It's been drastic. I know I've only got a minute left, but it's been drastic with management. It's been like pulling teeth, that we go forward, then we go back, and they're all the time on about cuts, but they've made their budget cuts. This is about efficiency and driving us out. They pay £12 million to consultants to redesign adult social care. So that would have kept us going 3 years. And also now, what they're doing is as well now, is that with management, they're trying to push VRs one-to-one. Now, our staff, the enablement, we're together, we're a team, we're the union, we work together, we stand together, and we are going to win this. We are determined to win it, and we're not going anywhere. We're there trying to push phone calls Friday night from staff that said, oh, I put my interest in just to see what they give me, but we're not going to go, we're seeing it to the end, no matter what. And management are saying to them, you've said you're interested, you've got to tell us by Monday if you want to go. Management want them to go within 2 weeks so that staff are gone. And then what they're doing as well is they're trying to push forward for one-to-ones so they can get staff in and demoralise them, because that's what happened in the VR trawl. They demoralised them that much that they went. But now everybody stood together and said, we're not having the one-to-ones, and management are actually, I think, panicking because we are as strong as we are. So thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you. See what you find. Let's see if people can make it to the demonstration in a couple of weeks. Okay, thank you.
Now we'll move swiftly on to the next dispute, Northern Rail. I think you all know about what's going on, but here we have Billy Kim to give us all the details.
Thanks very much, brothers and sisters. I'm here today to try and educate you a little bit what our dispute's about. Our dispute's about safety. And I'd like to thank some of the brothers and sisters from around the country who have halfway through resolving their dispute or have got there. I'm not going to mention my company's name. I'm ashamed to work for them, because all they want to do is make your travelling less safe. My job, I'm like Batman. You don't see me. I do the doors. I'll do the tickets, but when things go wrong, I put a uniform on and I help you. They want to take me away. Why do they want to take me away? Why? So their profits can go up. No other reason. I have a safety critical job. That safety critical job is risk assessed by the company and by the RMT. They've agreed what my job is, and they've agreed that since 1800s. But today, they want to take that away because they say they don't need me. On Saturday, 26th day of strike action, I stand here as one person, but there's 1,300 of us been on strike for 26 days. And I'm going to use somebody else's terminology. We'll be there for 27 days, 28 days, 29 days. We'll be there till you listen, but we're not going away. We're not going away. This isn't about an improvement of wages, an improvement of the terms and conditions. All we want to do is stand still. That's all we want. The last speaker, their terms and conditions are getting whittled away. Ours aren't. We just want to carry on doing what we do, helping, supporting you. I'll talk about a little bit about an instance on the picket line at Liverpool on Saturday. We're passing leaflets out, a gentleman comes up, I asked him to take a leaflet. He told me to put it somewhere. So I asked him to speak to me, and he said, you've ruined my weekend. So I said, I've ruined your weekend, because his train's cancelled. So we got on a train run by people, we can't use that terminology no more, can we? Thank you. Try to explain to him. At the moment, my company, it takes a minimum of 9 weeks to train a guard. Minimum. Them people, it takes 9 days. So how can they be trained in less time than the company's standard? it's not worth thinking about. Them trains are not safe. Please support us. We need, every speaker here this afternoon has spoke about standing united, standing together. That's what we need to do. The MPs need to listen to us. The councillors and certain Lord Mayors from a certain city need to listen to us. When they start listening, because you're on their backs, maybe our job will be safe. Our company tell us this isn't about our role. This is an attack from the RMT head office and an RMT campaign. I negotiate for our members in the RMT. I tell them it's got nothing to do with head office, it's to do with our members. Our members walk out for 26 days. Sean Oyle, our president, is here today. He doesn't tell me to go on strike. REC don't tell me to go on strike. I tell them that we're going on strike and we will carry on going on strike. When our company put in for the bid, the government put that bid together. The DFT puts the bid together. Chris Grayling wants to get rid of me. You're not getting rid of me. I'll stand here as long as it takes. Chris Grayling wants to get rid of us. The government, the people who run the companies are telling us it's all about the head office. It's all about Sean Oyle wanting this political argument. But who put the franchise bid together? The government then give it to the company. Why? Because they want to save money. And that's all it's about. So I ask you, picket lines, so on and so forth, any help you can give us, I ask for that help. But I also say to the TUC, and I apologise before I say this, get off your fucking arse and do something.
Colourful language. Our next speaker is Paul Rafferty from the Manchester Trades Council, come to bring greetings and let us know what's happening in his area. I like to do this because I'm also a secretary of a Trades Council, so I'd like to pick them up. Okay, Paul.
Okay, thanks Linda. I will start off by saying though, I really wish you hadn't remembered Rob, because he said just about everything that I'd intended to say, but that's the problem with speaking, I suppose, late on. So first of all, I just wanted to welcome you all here today to what is our home. This is where we meet twice a month as an executive member. This is where we run all our campaigns from, and this is where it all happens. And of course, this is where the TUC was born 150 years ago. And as Rob said before, it's quite right that we celebrate these anniversaries. We've got another one in my union as well. Unison's 25 years old this year. And it's quite right that we celebrate them. But it's not enough for these unions to just be producing all these glossy brochures, giving away a few goodies, and thinking that's job done. Their membership's gone up, and so they're happy. I am fed up of hearing my General Secretary saying to us, we are now the biggest union. I don't know if we're the biggest union. I don't care that we're bigger than Unite, unless that's because we are increasing our membership in the areas where we organise. I am not going to stand here and celebrate the fact that other unions' membership may be going down. I don't know that's the case, but it's sectarian and it really, really winds me up. So that's why I'm really, really pleased to be able to welcome you all to our home, to see so many militant, fighting trade unionists, because it's people like you who can push leaders like that one of my union, who is strangely absent from this meeting today. And we're also really proud that we've been able to support so many great campaigns in this city. So we've got some of them here in the room today. We've got Mirs coming up to speak in a minute, the RMT, the First Bus strikers, the Arriva bus workers, all these disputes that have been going on in the last 12 months or so. We're proud to have had our banner on those picket lines and been able to support them in the way we can. But we need to do more, and I'm aware that we need to do more, and we can't give up. And I would ask everybody in this room today, if your branch is not affiliated to a trades council, please consider doing that, because they are the organ of the local unions that can organise campaigns in the city, drawing in community groups and other groups of workers to fight against austerity, to fight for decent jobs, to fight for homes, to fight for good services. And that's what we need to do together. And I will make a promise back to you. Our Trades Council isn't affiliated to the NSSN. So I'm going to move a motion in our branch to make sure that that goes to the Trades Council and that we get ourselves affiliated. And I really hope that that motion is carried, because the great work that the NSSN does is everything that our Trades Council should be about. I did want to mention another meeting that was on here today that we've actually organised. Time's running on a little bit now, it's starting at 2 o'clock, and I'm fully aware that many of you are going on the march to the conference centre, and I would not ask anybody not to attend that meeting. But Manchester Trades Council has organised an anti-racism meeting today, starting at 2 o'clock, up on the 3rd floor here. And I think it's vital that the trade unions are at the vanguard of that fight. And what concerns me is that too many of our unions, my own included, are too happy to franchise out that anti-racism work to whatever flavour of the month organisation is, and we don't get anywhere. Yes, we need to be on the streets fighting these people, and solidarity to those RMT members who were savagely attacked in London a few weeks ago by those fascists. But we need to do more than that. We need to get amongst these workers to spread our programme, to give them the message against austerity, for real jobs, for good homes, council houses, let's call them what they are, council houses for everybody that needs one or wants one. And also for good services, so we can cut across the bullshit that is peddled by the far right, and we can win workers over to our struggle, so they know that when we're together, we will win, we can win, and we will win. As Bob Crow said, if you don't fight, if you fight, you won't always win, but if you don't fight, you will always lose. And that, comrades, is what we are about. So I would ask, if anybody isn't going on the march and the open mic thing to the conference centre, it is late, but do pop into that meeting, because we need trade union voices in there. Trade union voices that can say, it's not just enough to go and shout fascist scum or Nazi scum at a group of people and go home feeling better about ourselves. People who can give the arguments and the programme that will cut across the far right and their racism. So really that's all I wanted to say today. Again, welcome to Walters Building. Have a look at our great stained glass windows that document the history of the movement. Please enjoy the week, those who are here for TUC Conference, and solidarity to you all, and especially those who are in struggle. The Birmingham Care Workers, what a brilliant speaker we just had from them. I am so proud that that is my union. That's what our unions are about. Not men in suits who go around with big salaries and not backing the workers. It's workers like those Birmingham Care Workers who can push our leadership through their own militant action into backing them. And solidarity to you and solidarity to everyone else in the room who's on strike.
Thanks very much, Paul. We've got to move quickly on to the next dispute, although settled. It's still a great lesson for everybody. We've got Billy Sinclair of Unite talking about the mayor's dispute.
Yes.
Yes.
Brothers, sisters, thanks very much for inviting us here. Although our dispute is over, we smashed them, by the way, and we stuck together. It took 4 long years of negotiation before we even got out on strike. We were told, go ahead with your little strike by David Miles, the head man of mayors. We went ahead with our little strike. We went ahead despite mayors doing everything they could to stop the lads going out on strike. We went out on strike. The first 40 days didn't go well. It didn't go well. We were badly organised. We didn't really have a lot of idea what we were supposed to do, how we were supposed to function. We were picketing. We were doing everything we could. We then had to go back into work as the law says, the Tory law says. We had to go back. We balloted again. We didn't expect really to do that well. We smashed it again. We come out with a bigger result. This time we got organised. We had the backing of Unite monetarily. So some men got a pay rise, believe it or not. They actually got a pay rise on strike. They were loving it. A lot of the younger lads that came out with us who had just come out of their time, they got a pay rise. They'd never been so well off. Right? We got organised well and truly with the media. There's members in front of me here I see that helped us out, gave us donations, sent us words through the media, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we used it. We got in touch with our brothers on the buses. We got help with Fujitsu. They backed us, we backed them. We got out there, we got to the tenants. We had leverage on the go, we had everything. We had Andy Fisher, Regional Secretary, stuck by us. He was an inspiration, but most of all, it was the men that stuck by us. We were 100% united. We didn't waver once. We didn't give in. What, 3 minutes? Is that all I've got? We didn't give in. So brothers, sisters, if you're going to go out, don't worry that it don't go well. Don't worry that it's not going great. It will come together. It comes together. We were the biggest team building exercise mayors ever performed. We had brothers, sisters who would just nod at each other in the yard. Now they're going out for a pint. Right? We got together. The media. I see there's a camera up there. It ain't rolling. You never covered us on strike. Not one word did we get from the media, apart from the lovely people at the Socialists. They covered us. They let people know. We bombarded the town hall, the Socialist Manchester City Council. The last time I was here, I managed to embarrass Mr. Stringer. I wish I was here again today, because I'd do the same thing today. Right? They gave us nothing. Not one councillor went to one of our pickets. Not one of them. Not one of them turned up. We went to their meetings. They cancelled the meetings. Manchester City Council, Socialist councillors cancelled their meetings because we were there. And they wonder why we don't vote for them. They wonder why I ain't voting for you as a Labour candidate. You never do nothing for me. I'll support Jeremy all the way, but I ain't supporting Manchester. This is a corrupt council. And until we get them out and get a proper Labour council in, then it's always going to be corrupt. 1 minute, is that it? I tell you what, you like the wife wanting to get me home along the pint. Yeah? But please, brothers, sisters, if you're going to go out, stick at it. Don't give in. Don't take one step back. No surrender, and keep fighting these people. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy, and we will remember those words. We'll pass swiftly on to Yvonne. Yvonne of the probation officers. Just pass.
Good afternoon, comrades. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, okay. Right. Thank you very much for being invited here. Chris over there, you know, you could be a stalker if you ever get bored with your job at the moment. He's tracked me down. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the probation service. Some of you may know, some of you won't. Back in 2014, the probation service was part privatised. Huge chunks of the probation service were carved up and sold off in contract package areas to the likes of Sodexo, Interserve, some other really dodgy companies that you probably haven't even heard of. But actually, NAPO were at the forefront of fighting that privatisation. The probation service is over 100 years old. It is a public service. It is for the public. It is not to be making money for profit. So we believe it should stay in the public sector. Now, the plan for the privatisation was actually to bring down offending rates of a group of people that we have never ever had responsibility for. So all they needed to do was widen the remit of the probation service. We could have done the work. We're the professionals, we know what we're doing. Anyway, fast forward, it was privatised in 2014. And, you know, we were in that fight. We went to the High Court with a judicial review, which we took so far. We lost. We got part privatised. Now, a lot of our members thought we had failed. But actually, I would say that we didn't fail. Through that fighting and through all those efforts and all those sleepless nights, 5 years ago when I came to this job, I was only 25. You can see it's been a rough ride. Okay? But through that, we won lots of concessions and we made things a lot safer than they might otherwise have been. But nevertheless, we lost. Lots of our staff were sent to work for the private companies. We told them it would never work. It was never piloted. Nothing ever happened. You'd think it couldn't get any worse. Wrong. Here we are, 4 years on, post-privatisation. We have never stopped fighting. It's one thing after the other. There's been a number of Her Majesty's Inspection of Probation reports. They've all said these services are failing. They're failing badly. Guess what? We did tell you, but you wouldn't listen. And do you know who was responsible for it? That man, Chris Grayling again. He keeps popping up. Oh, and guess who was the Home Secretary at the time? Theresa May. So she can hardly say it was nothing to do with her, can she? So, as you can imagine, Grayling, May, we're not big fans of them. Nevertheless, this has gone on. There's been an increase in the number of serious further offences. They're offences where there's a risk of serious harm to people that have gone on since this part privatisation because people are not being properly supervised. They're not being, you know, sometimes they get a phone call once a month. Can you really say that that's supervising someone? This is a public safety issue. You know, everybody out there, all of us, all of them in government, the lot of them, they're all at risk because people are not being supervised properly. And, you know, a lot of people don't get this. We supervise the same people who are causing havoc in the prisons, who are being violent and attacking prison officers day in and day out. They are the same people, but we don't have the same protections. Not that they have many, and I've got a minute, so I best wind it up. So, what I would say, what is important is not the winning, it's about being in the fight. It's about not accepting what people say to you. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. We are the professionals, we know what we're doing. You know, we work long and hard to do what we do. We're all very passionate about changing people's lives, turning people's lives around. You know, not all offenders are bad people. There's about that many of them that are. Most of them have just lost their way and they need help, they need support, they need guidance. The National Probation Service is the service that should be doing it. Quickly, before I finish, the latest battle, there's a number of approved premises, formerly known as bail hostels, where the most risky people have to sleep at night. The night cover has been sold off to Sodexo in the north and OCS in the south. That happened in March, and these people, some of them that are working there, are little more than security guards. They're turning up for shifts and saying, what? You want me to work with these people? I'm off. And they're going. And some hostels have had not one single shift covered by these people. Oh, and guess what? The National Probation Service said that they will cover it. So who's paying for that? It's the public purse again. They should not have done it. So I say to you, we were in the fight prior to it, we're still in the fight now, and we will stay in the fight. Solidarity, brothers and sisters.
Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks, Yvonne. We have just got time for one more speaker, Chris Bott from PCS. Those people who did want to speak, make sure you come to the open mic at the conference centre because we have plenty of opportunity there. So quickly over to Chris.
Thanks, Linda. Comrades, always a pleasure to get the opportunity to speak at the National Shop Stewards Network. And again, as everybody said, the content of all of the interventions, the heroic strikes that have been covered in the course of today's meeting, this is the flavour that we want to take into the TUC, and this is the message we want the TUC to take heed of. And I just want to say about the Shop Stewards Network, it's always a privilege because I'm proud of my union's support for the Shop Stewards Network, where an activist culture defeated a right wing in league with the Thatcher government and the security services, where we fought against austerity and its activist culture, not just in PCS, that's been reflected in all the contributions today that can make unions into the fighting militant organisations that they need to be, confronted as we are with an all-out assault on the conditions of workers, not just in the public sector but generally. But let me just immediately introduce a subject that rarely gets covered in much debate in the labour movement. One of the few debates that's going to take place in the course of this week. They've stage managed on most of the issues, and that's a motion tabled by the Bakers Union that calls for a ban on fracking. Now, this isn't climate change is a trade union issue, and I hope that other unions will support that particular motion, recognising that despite the public health and environmental risks, despite the fact that only 14% in polls show support for fracking, despite the fact of local opposition overruled by a Tory minister, despite the domination of the energy companies that rip off customers, cause fuel poverty and are the cause of climate change, despite injunctions taken out against protesters, despite all of the opposition, they are now ploughing ahead with fracking imminently. And I think it's very important for the trade union movement to not just pass the motion tomorrow, but to support the protests and the action on the outskirts of my old town, Blackpool, but to make sure, in the course of the protests and the struggle, that we put an alternative in. It is a scandal that instead of ripping up the countryside on the outskirts of Blackpool and many other parts of what they derisively call the desolate north, all the terrible risks that will have upon the population, yet there is a clear alternative based on public ownership and public investment into wind and wave and clean technology. And I hope that unions will recognise that climate is a trade union issue, that we support the stance of the Bakers Union and others involved in these protests, and we mobilise on a massive scale to stop the fracking going ahead. Now, I just want to finish by making a couple of points about the question of solidarity. Now, my own union, like many, has had to deal with an unprecedented attack on members' conditions, but at the same time, an unprecedented attack on union rights. They cut the time for reps. We've removed national collective bargaining many, many years ago. Reflected, astonishingly, in a document leaked to us that was a discussion paper at the Board of Revenue and Customs, whose task you'd think should be to chase the tax avoiders and the tax dodgers, but instead spent a discussion on how to achieve and I quote, the organisational degradation of PCS's capacity to represent its members. And on top of that, we saw them remove the long-standing method of collecting subscriptions designed to cripple us financially. And my point in conclusion is we defied, as with the POA and the RMT, that also had to contend with the removal of that method of collecting subscriptions, PCS continues to fight on. And despite the biggest ever vote for industrial action we've ever recorded, the perverse requirement of a 50% threshold means that we're not in a position to take formal action. But our fight goes on, reflected in a number of notable disputes, where we work, where our members in the Ministry of Justice, for example, are fighting attempts to impose worse conditions for derisory pay offers. And I'm proud of the union's fight alongside United Voices, seeking to organise super-exploited cleaners in some of the central civil service departments to fight for a living wage. And in struggles of that character, of the care workers in Birmingham, of the heroic fight on the railways to keep the railways safe for the public, for the bakers seeking to reach out to exploited workers in McDonald's. That's the future of trade unionism. That's the type of trade unionism that will make it relevant to young people. That's the type of trade unionism that will tap into the millions of unorganised workers where the need for trade union protection, but not just the right to pay subscriptions. Unions that will fight when you join, that unions will stand up and fight, as Terry Bullinger said. That is the way to attract the young. That is the way to convey a message to future generations and build their power. Thanks very much for listening.
Tony, Tony, Tony! Ow, ow, ow! Tony, Tony, Tony! Ow, ow, ow! Tories! Ow! Tories! Ow! Tony, Tony, Tony! Ow, ow, ow! Ow, ow, ow! Tories, Tories, Tories! 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 Tories, Tories, Tories!
I have to say, after coming last year with the Birmingham bin workers and this year with the Unison Birmingham home care workers, it's been amazing to see my city, my hometown city, take fight action against cuts.
And these things are being cut from all of us. And this week we had the astonishing situation on the radio on Friday morning. I was called by the Today programme because the Chief Inspector of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman, had just been on. She had been attacked by a committee of MPs, the Public Accounts Committee, because of how poor a job Ofsted is doing. And she went on Radio 4, the premier programme, the Today programme, and she said that Ofsted had no evidence that the cuts that were happening in schools were impacting on children's education.
The NSSN has been there to support those disputes. I wanted to I used to share an office with Kevin, who was the last speaker, and I wanted to concur with him about the attacks on education. I am an education worker, and we need to make sure that we step up that campaign against cuts and that we can have action to defend our kids, working class kids' education in schools.
For the second time to beat the Tories anti-union laws and to ensure that we smash that 50% threshold, and we're organising action. The ballot is already open. It runs until the 19th of October. Up and down the country we're organising Get the Vote Out campaigns, speaking to our members, making sure that it's not taken for granted. We know that if we're going to smash those anti-union laws, we have to start department by department, faculty by faculty, going through the shop floor, having discussions with workers.
To start the week listening to people talk about socialism and solidarity, then day by day, within the building, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. There's some messages out there for the trade union movement. If you do want to make a difference, I heard the guy from I think his name was Steve from the Trades Council, he hit the nail on the head. The problem is, the bosses will always chase us. But the only reason it will ever stop is when we stop running. And we need all unions to be fighting unions. It's not happening at the moment. So when I come along to the NSS rally, you know, I really look forward to hearing brothers and sisters talking the language of the trade union movement. I'm afraid I rarely hear it in there. And I'll tell you this much, we had a motion for a general strike. Bob Crow seconded it. What happened? It never happened. We had a motion for an urgent conference to fight the anti-trade union bill. Never happened. So I'm looking forward to going in there now and spending a few days of my life that I'm not going to get back to listen to promises that are not going to happen. It's movements like this, it's the unions, the progressive unions need to come together, and if we need to take on the role that the TUC should be doing, then we've got to be brave enough to take it on. So I better not be too late in there, because obviously we're going to make a whole lot of difference in there for the workers. Thank you very much.